Hey internet friends, before I begin I want to be very transparent and put my own hypocrisy on blast before anyone else can roast me. You know how I usually promote the act of, turning off your television and focusing on your own life, family, and health without subjecting yourself to the constant trauma and distraction that the media pumps out on the daily? Well, that's the opposite of what I've done this week and I don't recommend it. But alas, here we are, and so we ask the question, what happens now? What is next to enter stage left in this ongoing production that is 2020? Even if you've been able to avoid the constant onslaught of propaganda that's played across the black box of traditional media, it's likely that you've encountered your fair share of it on social media, within your own social circles, as the virtue signaling accelerates in the race to not be labeled a racist. If you've not experienced this pressure from your friends and family to declare your anti-racism and denounce your privilege, you better believe you've seen celebrities, politicians, and corporations doing the heavy lifting. I even saw Planned Parenthood express their devastation surrounding the violence against Black lives, which really just encapsulates the complete perversion of narratives and full manipulation of the masses, given that Planned Parenthood specifically concentrates their population control facilities in Black neighborhoods. Like I said on Twitter, Planned Parenthood's Black body count makes Hotel Rwanda look like a weekend getaway. Also on the docket this week was former President Obama's virtual town hall, addressing the murder of George Floyd, saying that although it was a tragic event, he was at least pleased to see that many young people had been activated and mobilized by it.
And part of what's made me so hopeful is the fact that so many young people have been galvanized and activated and motivated and mobilized.
That's some interesting language, isn't it? Makes me think of MK Ultra mind control. And on Thursday, Apple CEO Tim Cook published an open letter on Apple's homepage in which he spoke about racism, addressing the deeply rooted discrimination in the justice system while completely ignoring how Apple makes the majority of their money off the back of Chinese and African slave labor. Good job, Tim, you did it. Very wholesome. Meanwhile, the charitable, tender-hearted organization we know as Bank of America has pledged $1 billion over the next 4 years to address racial inequality, expanding health clinics and vaccination clinics in communities of color. These are just a few examples of companies using their voice to end racism. Everyone else just posted Saturn's black cube and abstained from social media on Blackout Tuesday, on the day that Hillary Clinton lost her appeal in court and will have to testify in September. But I bet the media didn't tell you about that, did they? By this point, I have no doubt that the goal of the media is to have all of us on edge every single day, consuming the complete chaos. It's like a little spell they cast on us between the emotional triggers, repetition, demoralization propaganda, between the constant division promoted across CNN all the way over to Fox News. They keep everyone hating each other, focused on each other, instead of our focus being on those who control the actual system. The media claims they've declared war on fake news, but their entire modus operandi is to distract from the facts that actually matter. You know, like how the Federal Reserve has been looting the United States since 1913. How the CIA has been delivering pallets of bricks to cities long before any riots, albeit a totally different type of brick. And finally, how the 2020 virus was the biggest scam of the century. We have plenty of distractions, plenty of soiled breadcrumbs, plenty of emotional triggers, plenty of gaslighting happening right now. The same doctor who performed the autopsy on JFK, Michael Brown, Aaron Hernandez, and testified at the trial of O.J. Simpson and even performed the autopsy on Jeffrey Epstein, did the autopsy on George Floyd this week, which I find particularly interesting given that I doubt Epstein is even dead, which would technically make #Epstein didn't kill himself totally true. Of course, this is the second autopsy on Floyd because the first autopsy pointed to other factors like fentanyl in the system and a pre-existing heart condition. George Floyd and Officer Chauvin were co-workers who worked private security at the same place with overlapping shifts, yet the media denies that they knew each other. And when interviewed, none of Chauvin's neighbors even knew he was a police officer.
Did you know the Chauvins?
No. You know what? We didn't.
We
didn't know he was a cop.
And then, of course, yesterday was George Floyd's memorial service, which played across every television screen, and thousands of attendees were all crowded together in one space, including politicians who would never miss the opportunity to capitalize on a good old crisis. Now, I saw plenty of coverage of this event, and your typical mouthpieces were relaying commentary, the same figures who just last week shamed people for leaving their homes, especially without a mask, and these same mouthpieces are now congregating in close quarters with thousands of others, urging you to speak up about racial inequality and call out others for not doing so. Which is pretty rich, but also sort of devastating, because the last few months you were told you can't even visit grandma in her final days in the nursing home, much less give her a proper funeral, because God forbid you might infect someone. And that's what I mean by we have plenty of distractions, because now the media has moved on to the divide and conquer phase, praying that we're all as stupid as they think we are. That our attention spans are too short to remember that just a few months ago, they propagated fear around a virus that put all of us in government-mandated quarantine. Unemployment numbers skyrocketed, and many people were too afraid to even hug their own mother. They aimed to make us fear our neighbors, to dehumanize us, to shame and snitch on others for not following orders. The playgrounds around the block from your house had caution tape on them like it was an active crime scene. And yet the true body count of corona victims simply didn't support the hype, the medical martial law, and the forfeiture of the livelihoods of many. As they were laid off, their businesses forced to close, and they were simply unable to financially provide for their families. We were all affected by this. This was an attack on our personal freedoms and liberties, regardless of the color of our skin, and we were all in this together, as one, united. They had declared war on us. And then they divided us, as though someone snapped their fingers, and worldwide protests, much in the same pattern of the Arab Spring, are taking place in response to this instance of police brutality. Just like that, coordinated in a matter of days. These protests begin peacefully with genuine people, and then it's infiltrated by your bought and paid for rent-a-mob, and then the people beg for government intervention, which comes in the form of curfews, of martial law, problem, reaction, solution, wash, rinse, repeat. Good people are the ones who suffer, while authoritarian rule tightens its grip on society. So the question is, what comes next? Well, I hope I'm wrong, and certainly by no means want this to happen. But follow the pattern of the Arab Spring, or since it's an election year, follow the pattern of the 2016 race protest with Anton Sterling and Philando Castile. What happened then? A sniper fired upon police officers. The formula says that the next move is for some agent, probably a Mossad agent, dressed as a police officer will cause great harm to a group of innocents, or vice versa, some nutter they've terrorized to the brink of insanity, or just a typical agent will pose as a civilian and harm police officers, with the ultimate goal to fan the flames of orchestrated chaos, causing the most emotional trauma to the captive audience, so they will beg for intervention, and thus the next phase of the plan can be brought about, which, in this instance, would be the new normal they've been programming us all for. Like I said in my last video, I can't personally stop the boulder free-falling down the cliff. Everything in its path will be destroyed, including itself when it finally makes impact. So it is what it is. All I can do is control how I react to the program, to the emotional triggers, to the societal pressure. So let me turn the question over to you, internet friends, since we're all in this psyop together. What do you think is up next during this long hot summer? How will you react to the program? As always, thank you so much for even taking part of your day to hear me out. I truly appreciate it, and I think it's so important to have these discussions without any of the shame, and also ask the tough questions. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, and supporting me on Patreon. Bye!